Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the How to Make Money With podcast. My name is Ryk van Niekerk, and this podcast is your essential guide to practical, innovative, and sometimes downright surprising ways to earn some extra cash. Think of it as our continuous search for the perfect side hustle. Opportunities to make money are all around us. You just need to know where to look. Today's topic is how to make money with teaching English. On the line is Luan Drayden. Now, she is from the TEFL Academy in Cape Town, and she is a language practitioner. TEFL is actually TEFL, and it stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language, or simply put, teaching English to people who speak another first language. Luan, thank you so much for your time. Tell us about the TEFL Academy. What do you guys do?
Greg, thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to have this conversation with you and your listeners. Just a bit of background about what TEFL is. As you beautifully put it, TEFL stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. And you nailed it as well. It is a qualification that gives people the ability to go and teach, whether this be abroad, whether it be online, whether it be right here on home soil in South Africa. So it's an essential qualification if you want to apply for any of these teaching jobs, right? And getting your TEFL certificate is really that first step in your teaching and your travel adventure. And us at the TEFL Academy, so we've got the industry's acronym right there in our name, the TEFL Academy. We've recognized this, and our trainee teachers are well trained because we understand them, we understand the students out there. So the course really just gives them that opportunity to get classroom ready for a teaching position.
Is that an international qualification? Is it accredited somewhere? Why do you need this qualification to be able to teach people in China, for example?
So that is a fantastic question because you see all these fly-by-night TEFL certificates popping up, but the TEFL qualification is an internationally recognized qualification. And the TEFL Academy, which is actually based in the UK, they've done their homework and they are in contact and endorsed by really, really big grading and educational bodies, because we want our students to feel like, when I apply for a job, particularly one abroad, it stands for something and it's internationally recognized. Because as South Africans, I know that that's the first question, right? What am I doing here? Is it going to be recognized overseas? That's where I want to go. So we've heard that. And our certificate really is one of those certificates that can stand, and it is internationally recognized, to answer your question.
How long does it take to attain that qualification? And would you get a job immediately after you have the certificate against the wall?
Right. So another great question. Thank you. Once you enroll, Rick, you start immediately. The course is online. It's at your pace. And I know that this comes from a need for people to do a full-time job or another part-time job. They have family commitments. They have other studies. So the course is online. We do have a face-to-face aspect built into some of our courses, but predominantly online, which means you set the pace, right? You do get 6 months access to the course material. It's very interactive. It's very engaging. You have tutors like myself promoting and doing all the videos and guiding students from initiation to completion, really. So once your 6 months expire, then yes, you then apply, you get your certificate, and you can start the application process immediately. Rick, there are students doing the course who just finished that final assignment and they already start applying with just the report from the final assignment, because it gives, that confirmation that the course has been completed. And what's really nice is that we did a survey quite recently and we looked at how soon, and I know that this is something that South Africans are asking about, right? How soon after I get certified can I get a job? So we actually decided to talk to graduates, to talk to people who have done our course, interviewed tons of them. And we found that most, 80% of our graduates found a job within 3 months. And, there are not many industries out there that can give you that immediate acceleration into the job market. So for South Africans looking to do the course, 6 months access to the actual material. I will say that most of our participants finish the course within the 6 months, quicker sometimes. Others take the full duration because, like I said, family commitments, other things.
How much does it cost?
Right. So that's the exciting part because I'm not here to sell courses, right? But I think that if your listeners just have a look at the prices, they will see that they are ever so affordable. Plus, we've actually made a payment plan specifically for the South African student so they can pay it off. Whereas the other countries don't have that luxury, South Africans do, and they can pay it off. So please have your listeners have a look at our site. It's theteflacademy.com. And you're looking at, I'm on the site right now. I decided to give you numbers. We've got the online level 5 diploma course, and I'm looking at 3,897, payment plan 1,299 over 3 months or 3 installments. We've also got, less expensive courses like the level 3 course if you're just looking for online tutoring work or to be a teacher's assistant. So as you can see, in terms of the South African economic climate, these courses are relatively inexpensive for something that can give people a lifelong career.
So it's less than $4,000 for the level 5 diploma. So you need to make that investment. You need to spend 6 months behind your computer and follow this course and pass it, I would assume. And what then? Now you would like to get a job. You would like to get teaching and you would like to get paid because that is the whole idea. So how do you go about getting your first job?
Right. So, I would love to tell your listeners my lovely story. I started applying to online platforms because I thought, you know what? I don't have the experience of walking into an actual classroom and teaching real live learners. So I started applying to all these online platforms out there who are more than willing to give an inexperienced teacher a chance. That's how I started. I had zero experience in the classroom. And then once you start logging hours of teaching onto your CV, well, your CV starts looking better, right? I also started to tutor people near me just to log those hours of teaching. So that's my story. But once someone is TEFL accredited, that exciting journey really begins. The first practical step is to update your CV. We give you help with that also. And then you start exploring many platforms, job boards that specialize in English teaching roles. So we've got our own jobs board on the TEFL Academy's site, but there are many, many others that you can also look at that are specifically tailored for newly qualified teachers. And if you're aiming to teach online, especially to international learners, children, you'll want to look for platforms that really support virtual classrooms. And most of them have a really straightforward application process. So, Rick, something your listeners need to know is that they might be asked to make a short introductory video. They might be asked to do a short demo lesson. This is all quite standard, right? And then, yes, you just send that CV every single day. Make sure that you are set up at home, that you've got a nice, clean, open space, professional looking. And then, just don't be afraid to jump in because very often those short-term contracts, those informal tutor sessions, they do turn into something long-term. And teachers can bag jobs with very little experience, which is good news.
And how much do you earn when you start out?
Okay, so I can give you the very short answer and I can give you the slightly extended answer, right? So if you look online, and I'm going to speak very basically and openly to your listeners because they can themselves have a look online, right? So you're going to see rates from 190 to 200 Rand per hour to 560 Rand per hour. It all depends a little bit on your experience and just, it differs from country to country, platform to platform. I know that overseas, TEFL teachers typically make enough to save about 30 to 40% of their salaries after expenses, and this allows them to cover their bills and also enjoy the culture. And this comes from that survey we conducted. But since your talk is all about money, I feel something that I really need to mention here, and this is important, is that the TEFL certificate gets you into the classroom, yes. But that's just the beginning, right? Once you've got a bit of experience under your belt, there are so many other exciting and lucrative avenues that people can follow, right? So you can go into writing educational materials for TEFL providers like I do. You can become a tutor. help training new teachers. You could move into managerial roles at schools or language centers. There are also opportunities to become examiners or to specialize in a niche area like business English or exam preparation. So those all call for higher rates, bigger salaries. So as you can see, there are other lucrative avenues to explore with your TEFL certificate.
This question may be, like asking how long is a piece of string, but how many hours do you need to teach before you can regard yourself as being experienced and to be able to, qualify to do those additional jobs you've just articulated?
Right. So initially, as mentioned, a school, an online platform will be willing to accept you with very little to no experience. And, I could give you the whole story of I know someone, but I genuinely know people who have applied with zero experience, myself included. So to an online platform, very little experience is required because, and this is the reason, they are so determined to have you teaching their materials within their parameters that they provide the training you need and then give you that on-the-job training. So with your TEFL certificate, you've got a foot in the door and then they take over and do the rest, right? Now, to answer your question, that second part about all those additional things, well, then, yes, you're going to need a couple of years in the classroom. You're going to have to maybe just venture into different levels, different age groups. Because remember, if you're going to be writing material or providing course content or being an examiner, you need to have taught over a few different levels and age groups. So initially, little to no experience. For all those other jobs that I mentioned, a couple of years in the classroom minimum.
How many people teach English as a side hustle? They've got their full-time job or they've got a part-time job. They are not making enough money to pay all the bills or allow them to play as hard as they would like to play. Is it a side hustle opportunity?
Rick, you're a money man. I can hear this, right? So I'm going to speak to that first. But I'm so glad that you're asking these questions because they're not coming from notes that I've gathered. They're coming from things I see in my classrooms, in my experience, right? So when I run a TEFL course, so we have the online aspect of the course, which is about almost 100%. But then, as I mentioned, we also have a classroom aspect where people can actually attend, get some practical experience and that sort of thing. So this is quite exciting. On a morning when I welcome my new trainee teachers, Rick, it's anyone's guess who's sitting there. So I have people who are fresh out of university looking for another opportunity. I have people fresh out of matric looking for another opportunity. I have retirees who have decided, I'm not done yet. I want to get busy. And then I also have people who are looking for that second chance. Someone who's not happy in their own industry and they want to change. Someone who just feels, I'm not making enough money in my own industry and I want to change. So literally, that is the landscape I'm looking at. Those are the demographics that we speak to at the TEFL Academy. And that's what I've got in front of me. People just looking for something, whether it's something new, something different, that's the landscape. So it's an exciting place to be as a tutor. But I do understand that a lot of people are looking for a financial boost. And it certainly gives that. It gave me that initially. And now it's just become a career.
Well, if I think, aloud, you said earlier, you start off with around, say, 200 Rand an hour. So if you work 5 hours a day, that's $1,000 a day, 5 days a week, or 30 days a month, you earn around 30,000 Rand. And that is, as an entry-level salary, it's decent. And do you work 5 hours a day?
Right. So initially, yes. And initially, I worked online. I worked 5 hours a day, sometimes more. I also had clients that worked in countries where our time zones were completely different. So often it would be at the end of my working day, I'd have to sign on and teach. So yes, initially, to get that experience, to earn that, as you mentioned, decent salary, yes. I did the legwork, right? But then, as mentioned, as you grow in TEFL, you find those other avenues of making additional money. And then you can make that concerted or that educated decision and really decide, okay, so do I want to reduce my teaching hours and increase my writing hours? What do I want to do? So it definitely gives you that option, that scope to choose, and I don't know of many other industries that do this.
Yeah, I think the real opportunity here is if you teach somebody in China, for example, that may fall out of normal working hours in South Africa. And that could be early in the morning, I would imagine. So it could be a side hustle. Which markets in the world really, use these services and demand, to be taught English?
Right. So we find in the research we've done, yes, a lot of the Asian markets, so you've got China, South Korea, that there's a high demand for teachers. And then also South America, Brazil, particularly, huge demand for teachers and also South African teachers. But I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, why we're so special. And then also, yes, a lot of our teachers find work in Europe. And I tend to go in that direction when it comes to my online work, because I'm not a very early morning person. Thank goodness we are talking at this time of the day. I'm also not a very late night kind of person. I have a family. I can't be teaching when I'm supposed to be doing other things. So initially, my hours might have started out a little bit on the inconvenience side. But then, as I mentioned, you gain that experience and then you get to decide, right, this works for me or this doesn't work for me. So yeah, I mean, it can start like that, but then it can become easier. And then as to your question about the different markets, well, South African teachers are globally in demand. So we're finding work in all the corners.
So why are we so special?
I wanted to answer that question, right? So, and this is just endearing. I love this, right? So South African teachers are in such high demand around the globe. And these are the words that come out of prospective employers' mouths, right? Strong educational background, neutral English accent, nogal, international experience, cultural diversity, as well as that adaptability due to our own diverse and often challenging local environments, right? So these factors really combine to make South African teachers some of the most valued and sought after teachers globally in the education market. And if you look at our environment alone, Rick, right? So we live in a country with now 12 official languages, numerous cultures, vast backgrounds, and that's just the local population. So we've really, really seen it all. And because of that, and because of this engaging nature that we have, because we're so used to all these different backgrounds and cultures and walks of life, we're kind of important out there and getting employed.
Do you have any, indication, or is there any indication of how many South Africans are doing this?
So I can't give you exact numbers, but what I am going to tell you is a little company secret, and I hope I don't get into too much trouble over this, but I know that when we run the weekend course, for example, right? So that's one aspect of the course that I mentioned earlier. South Africa, specifically Cape Town, is our busiest city, right? Which means the courses are just regular. People are doing the course. People are going overseas. Busiest city. And very often when I speak to colleagues and I tell them, right, I've got a weekend course, they often say, oh, yes, me too. It's a big one. I have 12 people. And I say, oh, 12, really? Because we're full to capacity, 30 candidates every single time. And these courses are just increasing. So, yeah, it's a big market out there.
Are there opportunities for people who speak maybe a different language, Spanish, Portuguese, etc.?
To teach English?
No, to teach those languages.
Right. So TEFL specifically deals with English teaching, right? But the methodologies that we teach, I know teachers of other languages have applied these, because remember, we're teaching you to teach another language. So even if you're not going to be teaching English per se, but you've got another language that you can go and teach out there, the methodology, it's the same. And a lot of teachers find that useful. And Rick, something else that I've got to mention is that on the courses, a lot of our clients are actual teachers who have got their teaching qualifications in South Africa or in other countries that do the TEFL, because it does enrich, it upskills even a qualified teacher. So yeah, lots of people are seeing the value.
I think this is a very interesting side hustle opportunity. Luan, thank you so much for speaking to us today and explaining exactly how it can work. It seems like it's very, very flexible and you don't need to do it full time. well, there may be the opportunity to turn a part-time side hustle into a full-time job as you gain more experience and more opportunities present themselves. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
That was Luan Drayden. She is from the TEFL Academy in Cape Town. That's it for this episode of the How to Make Money with podcast. I hope you found it useful and maybe even a little inspiring. If you've enjoyed it, please like, follow or subscribe, depending on your platform, and share it with someone who's also looking for smart ways to earn more. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time as we explore more practical ways to make money.